how does the fault? We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
What message does that send to the troops?
Well, what message does it send?
That you can get away with things. We have to have good order and discipline. It's the backbone of what we do. I don't think he really understands the full definition of a warfighter. A warfighter is a profession of arms. And a profession of arms has standards that they have to be held to, and they hold themselves to.
Right. So they got to be standards that are plausible and reasonable.
So the president doesn't understand the warfighter, Newt.
Well, I think it's a question of bias and emphasis. My dad spent 27 years in the infantry, and I think he had a pretty deep sense from World War II, Korea, and Vietnam of being a warfighter. And part of the question you have is a matter of bias. Here's a guy who dedicated his entire life to defending his country, who represented one of the most elite units we have. Let's say he made a mistake. The question the president's saying is that a big enough mistake to take away his symbol, the trident, of being a SEAL, and in effect have him retire in dishonor, which it would have been among his colleagues? Yeah. Or can we overlook this one thing, because this guy gave us years of very hard service in very dangerous places?
These are very, very twisted people. I have to say, Donald Trump is doing what no foreign adversary could do, and that's destroy the U.S. military. I mean, you think about it. You know, the slave-holding South couldn't defeat our military. The freaking British couldn't defeat our military. Hitler, the Kaiser, the Soviets in the Cold War, none of these, they all failed to defeat the U.S. military. And Donald Trump alone is doing such institutional damage to the military on purpose. I can't even, explain to you how serious this is. Everybody that worries about martial law, that's small potatoes when you consider what this is. This is making the military not loyal to democracy, not loyal to the Constitution, not loyal to the oath they take to protect and defend the United States. This is making the military into a cult of personality that is loyal only to the dear leader. This is a military, coup. I mean, this is just unbelievable. The military has the most complicated and dangerous things to do, the most insanely, specifically organized and executed things that they must do. And it's all about process and planning and chains of command. I mean, they set up 1 million dominoes to all fall perfectly. And Donald Trump is like Benny Hill riding the tricycle. Do you know what I'm saying? This is so damaging. This is so, I mean, having Donald Trump in charge of the military is like having a NASA moon mission run by the Hells Angels. You need people who know math and physics and science. And the people he likes, their expertise is in knife fights and, gang rape. What could go wrong? What could go wrong, everybody? I mean, we are literally being destroyed from within. This is unbelievable. The United States military has always been about people like me. Citizen soldiers defending their country, and Trump wants to make it into a mercenary, a thug fighting force that fights for him and him alone.
I am the chosen one.
Oh, this is really, I got to say, and when you look at the lawyers, have you seen the lawyers? You know who the lawyers are? The lawyers were Rudy Giuliani's ex-law partners from Greenberg Traurig. Okay, the lawyers are Mark Mukasey, Michael Mukasey's son, and Bernie Kerik, the former disgraced felonious. I mean, he was convicted of like 7, 8 felonies, Bernie Kerik. How is this possible that he's got a law? I don't even understand it. I don't even understand how this whole thing works. But here you have suddenly all the Trump supporters like on the side of Russian invasions, on the side of Russian conspiracy theories, on the side of Donald Trump's conspiracy theory that Ukraine did it and Russia didn't. And I mean, it's an alternative universe. When you watch that channel, you just feel like up is down and black is white, and you're through the looking glass, and 2 and 2 is 5, and the 2 minutes hate, and I mean it's Orwellian, and it's dangerous, and it's not stopping. Last night, Tucker Carlson said out loud what Tucker Carlson has been thinking for a really long time, and that is that he doesn't care about an American ally, that he doesn't care about Ukraine, that he doesn't care. In fact, he said out loud he's rooting for Russia.
So Hunter Biden didn't. I know Hunter Biden. I actually like Hunter Biden, but that's totally corrupt, and you know it. Why is it worse to ask about it than it is to do it?
Because people are dying.
Yeah, well, let me just interject here before he says this thing that is just so unforgivable about Russia and rooting for Russia. He says, why was it so bad to ask for the investigation and not really want the investigation? And the answer is plain. Because the investigation would produce nothing incriminating about Hunter Biden or Joe Biden. All Donald Trump wanted was the campaign issue. All Donald Trump wanted was to stand on the stage and saying, even Ukraine thinks he's dirty. Okay? And I don't know who this freaking guest is, but he doesn't get it.
On the front lines. You think it's a joke?
Why do I care? Why do I care what's going on in the conflict between Ukraine and Russia? And I'm serious. Like, why do I care?
I'll tell you why.
And why shouldn't I root for Russia, which I am?
Why shouldn't I root for Russia, which I am? Why should I care about what's happening to an American ally? You see, and this is why the problem in the Pentagon is so big, because it's not just pardoning war criminals, 3 of them. It's not just pardoning a guy who was sentenced to 19 years for murder. Okay, it isn't even just this situation that we find ourselves in now with Gallagher and Goldstein and Lawrence and another guy you probably never even heard of named B. Hammond, I think. I don't even know how to pronounce his name. Lawrence got 19 years for the murder of 3 innocent Iraqi civilians. He said that they were on a motorcycle and they were gunning their motorcycle. He thought he was being fired at. His platoon literally testified against him. That did not happen. It was not happening. Their motorcycles weren't even turned on, and that he got on the radio and he called in, a kill. He was sitting in Leavenworth for 19 years, and he got pardoned. Major Goldstein was supposed to stand trial for the murder of an unarmed Afghan man who he told the CIA that he killed and then, buried him in a shallow grave, went back to the shallow grave, unburied him so he could burn his body. I mean, that was just cold-blooded murder. They stripped Goldstein of his Special Forces tab, and then Lawrence and Goldstein were both cause celebrity. I don't even know how to pronounce that French word, but they were causes that Fox took up, that Pete Hegseth took up, and Fox News inserted themselves into the chain of command inside the U.S. military. I mean, it's just, but that's not even all. I mean, you have to remember what Trump has done to the U.S. military. First, you remember, he wanted the U.S. military and actually deployed them to do border patrol duties, and they were livid about that. The U.S. military is not allowed to operate inside the United States. This is why people are making jokes like, we're this close to having Trump say that you have to quarter the soldiers in your house and pay for it. I mean, that was one of the things, that they should do border patrol duty. Then he took the military money and he illegally, according to the court, repurposed it under a fake national emergency claim to pay for the wall. This was for military on-base housing. He went into the construction budget and he spent the military's money on a stupid wall. Then, before that, he said he wanted a military parade to honor him. Lately, he ordered the military to betray our allies, the Kurds, and this totally demoralized our troops in Syria, who then were ordered to stand aside while their fighting brothers, the Kurds, were slaughtered. Then go further back. Remember the USS John McCain scandal, where he tried to cover up the name of the vessel so that he didn't have to see it? He ordered a space force be created. Then he tried to do a trans ban in the military.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
So Hunter Biden I know Hunter Biden. I actually like Hunter Biden, but that's totally corrupt, and you know it. Why is it worse to ask about it than it is to do it?
Because people are dying on the front lines. You think it's a joke?
Why do I care? Why do I care what's going on in the conflict between Ukraine and Russia? And I'm serious. Like, why do I care?
Tell you why.
And why shouldn't I root for Russia, which I am?
Because those of us who are watching, myself, who think preserving democracy is important. When Dick Cheney said what the Russians did was an attack,
I don't care.
It was a warlike attack on the U.S. And I think if Donald Trump gets off the hook on this, he's going to put the arm on the Chinese and everybody else.
Wow. So you actually suddenly now have Trump supporters in the media singing Russia's praises. Are they getting their talking points in Cyrillic? I mean, this is just bizarro world. They're literally rooting for Russia, for an oligarchic, autocratic, where you kill journalists. It's a brutal oligarchical dictatorship under Vladimir Putin. And now the Republicans just love that. That is so sick. I mean, it's like, you know, Stalin at least had an economy theoretically based on Marxism, you know, which was like family farms and sharing the means of production, which didn't work. But Putin, oligarchy and corruption, and they're all about it. They're for it. They're out there, you know, out loud saying it. And then I guess at the end of the show, Tucker Carlson realized that Twitter had lit up, and they were like, oh my God, the right wing is literally singing Russia's praises. You know, like he just said, why do I care about the conflict between Ukraine and Russia? I'm serious. Why do I care? Why shouldn't I root for Russia? Which I am. And so he did this little brief thing at the end.
Earlier in the show, I noted that I was rooting for Russia in the contest between Russia and Ukraine. And of course, I'm joking. I'm only rooting for America.
In the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, you're only rooting for America. No, you're rooting for Donald Trump's Russia and his vision of Russia. Of course he's rooting for Russia because Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, oligarchy, autocracy, and corruption in Russia is exactly what we're starting to see. Well, we've been seeing attempts. It's actually happening here in America. Russia and America are producing the same exact policies, and the people on Fox News are all for it. They're all about it. And I just want you to know, Russia is some nothing country. Okay? People literally make $450 a month in Russia, while the top autocracy, the top oligarchs, make multiple hundreds of billions of dollars off of their natural resources. I mean, it's so sick to hear it out loud. And it's going on all across the right-wing media. And it really does depend on which channel you're on, what you'll say to the people who are watching. Because, you know, yesterday, another contretemps. Senator, John Neely Kennedy, not to be confused with JFK, John Neely Kennedy, who was a Democrat, who ran for the Senate in Louisiana, I can't tell you what, 2-3 times, failed, realized, oh, if I just put an R after my name, they'll vote for me. Same guy, failed before, now all of a sudden he wins because he puts an R after his name, okay? So he gets on the TV and, on the Sunday shows, he's asked by Chris Wallace, why are you saying Ukraine did this when everybody knows that Russia did it? And he sat there and said, I don't know. I don't know. No one knows. No one knows who did it. I mean, this is ridiculous. You had the testimony of Fiona Hill, and that was played for him before he opened his mouth. And then Chris Wallace said, why are you saying it's Ukraine?
This is a fictional narrative that has been perpetrated and propagated by the Russian security services themselves.
They gave the server to CrowdStrike or whatever it's called, which is a company owned by a very wealthy Ukrainian.
Russia.
And I still want to see that server. The FBI has never gotten that server. That's a big part of this whole thing.
Senator Kennedy, who do you believe was responsible for hacking the DNC and Clinton campaign computers, their emails? Was it Russia or Ukraine?
I don't know. Nor do you. Nor do any of us.
What?
Ms. Hill.
Well, I mean, let me just interrupt to say the entire intelligence community says it was Russia.
Yeah.
Right, but it could also be Ukraine. I'm not saying that I know one way or the other. I'm saying that Ms. Hill is entitled to her opinion, but no rebuttal evidence was allowed to be offered. We know, at least the Republicans in the House wanted to call a witness, a DNC political operative, who lobbied the Ukrainian embassy to be involved, get involved in the 2016 election. We don't know if Ukraine did that. We don't know to what extent, because they won't let the president offer his evidence. And that's why I'll say once again, the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence if you're not allowed to call your own witnesses.
Okay, so we all know the president is blocking every witness. We know he's blocking Pompeo and Mulvaney and Bolton and Bolton's, Kupperman, the deputy. He's blocking OMB people. He's blocking. I mean, we all know that the president is prohibiting, right? We'll get to the court ruling in a minute. But honestly, this is so sick. So now, all of a sudden, again, Twitter lights up and says, what is wrong with Senator Kennedy? Some of us actually read the Mueller report. And Volume 1 is 200 pages long, detailing how the Russian intelligence services hacked into the DNC, got material when Donald Trump said on the 27th of June, July, Russia, if you're listening, I hope you can find. Later that day, the Russians began to hack Hillary Clinton's personal email server. This is a conclusion that the 16 intelligence agencies had reached. This is the conclusion that Robert Mueller had reached. This is the consensus of the United States of America's law enforcement and intelligence apparatus, that Russia did this. I don't know, and you don't know, but depending on the audience, Senator Kennedy will say whatever he needs to say.
Do you really believe that it wasn't Russia?
I did an interview yesterday with Chris Wallace.
Yeah.
Damn good reporter. Mm-hmm. I was answering one of his questions, and he interjected a statement and asked me to react to it. What I heard Chris say was he made the statement that only Russia had tried to interfere in the election. And I answered the question. That's not what he said. I went back and looked at the transcript. He said only Russia tried to hack the DNC computer. Now, Chris is right. I was wrong. The only evidence I have, and I think it's overwhelming, is that it was Russia who tried to hack the DNC computer.
That's what the consensus is.
I've seen no indication that Ukraine tried to do it.
Oh, wait, what happened here? So it depends where he's sitting. Where he sits dictates where he stands. Whoops.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844.
561-270-3844. So, good. Let's check a big honking box. You don't think Ukraine was the one to look at the server. Then why do you think the president keeps saying something that he also knows is not true? Intelligence community, the Senate committee on it, our entire apparatus that looked at this. Mm-hmm. You guys have been briefed about it. Why does he say something that you know is untrue?
Well, here's why. There is a lot of evidence, proven and unproven. Everybody's got an opinion that Ukraine did try to interfere, along with Russia and probably others, in the 2016 election.
What evidence?
In January of 2017, Politico did a long, exhaustive article talking about it. On October 21 of this year, The Economist magazine wrote a long piece, probably the best I've read, talking about Ukraine's involvement in the election. There have been pieces in the in CBS, on Washington Examiner.
They raised questions. They raised questions, but we both know Mueller spent almost 30 pages on this. He testified.
They raised questions before the completion of the Mueller investigation about a couple of letters that were written that Fiona Hill testified about. You did have a member of parliament in Ukraine say that Donald Trump was no friend of Ukraine, and he wrote a piece. The piece was really not so much about either of the candidates. It was really about Ukraine's dilemma and about the annexation of Crimea and who would, invoke sanctions and who wouldn't, and da-da-da-da-da. That's what he's talking about. They raised questions. Then Mueller finished his investigation, a 2-year-long investigation. This is another lie that the Republicans are, from day one they wanted to. No, we waited patiently for 2 long, hard years for the Mueller investigation to conclude. And when it did, it concluded that Russian state actors, that the intelligence agencies, the Russian intelligence agencies, the GRU, and named the agents, named them, indicted them in absentia because we don't have extradition with Russia, and charged them with defrauding the United States and interfering in an election and all these other things, and then concluded that Trump welcomed it, encouraged it, and wanted it, needed it, loved it. These people, and you know what's really strange? It depends where Senator Kennedy is appearing. When he's on Fox News, I don't know who did it. When he's on CNN, well, of course, Russia did it. Of course. So why is the president, still pounding on a conspiracy theory, a debunked one, that everybody in his administration told him, including the chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, who is a Republican, because the Senate is Republican. Richard Burr of North Carolina conducted his own investigation. Senator Kennedy is totally aware that the conclusion of the Senate's own investigation into Russian meddling concluded that Russia did it. And so to sit there on Fox News and say, I don't know, and to talk to the cult members like that, and then to go on CNN and say, I misheard the question, I was wrong. And then for them to sit there and go, well, but there's no direct evidence, and so the president is, it's okay for him to want. The president's own cabinet members have confessed. Mick Mulvaney confessed and told us to get over it. He said politics will always be part of foreign policy. And now I think you understand that no, politics is not foreign policy, nor is it a part of foreign policy. That American politics ends and begins at the water's edge. And what is foreign policy is American national security, not the preservation of a party or a president.
Let's look at this. First, they hung their hat on there's no evidence of a quid pro quo. Then there was overwhelming evidence of a quid pro quo. Now some are hanging their hat on, well, what's your evidence that the president withheld the military aid? The president's own chief of staff has admitted they withheld the military aid to get this investigation, this crazy DNC server investigation, which is part of a Russian disinformation campaign. The president's own chief of staff. I mean, they seem to be saying, unless Donald Trump writes out, I bribed Ukraine, the evidence will be insufficient. What every juror is told, and I don't think that the Senate is different than a jury here, at least it shouldn't be, is they don't leave their common sense at the door. There was no plausible explanation but one, and that was the president wanted this leverage to get Ukraine to do his political dirty work.
And now we understand that some of the people in Ukraine working at this gas company that Rudy Giuliani and Parnas and Fruman had their eye on and needed Maria Yovanovitch removed as the ambassador because she was so anti-corruption that she would have barked it out. She would have said no to them coming into Naftogaz, right? So now they've interviewed an American citizen named Andrew Favorov, who is a director at Naftogaz. And he's saying that, he couldn't believe that the president was able to get Maria Yovanovitch fired, that Rudy Giuliani was mentioned to him as being the go-to guy for the president of the United States, and that Parnas and Fruman were Rudy Giuliani's partners in this.
The State Department released nearly 100...
Oh, I'm sorry. That's the wrong one. No,
you suggested
and that's the wrong one, too. Which one am I looking for? This one.
But they were saying, we'd like you, we're going to make you the president of Naftogaz, the CEO, and by the way, we're going to get rid of the U.S. ambassador?
They alluded to the fact that the ambassador was not aligned with the interests of, or she will be changed. Honestly, I didn't take it seriously at first. You know, you hear all sorts of crazy stories, but, when it starts panning out and when it started happening and you start hearing about this is actually going to take place and then it actually took place, that's when it was just a moment of wow for me. How has this happened?
Did they mention Rudy Giuliani?
Yes.
As their conduit?
They mentioned it, yeah, as one of the channels of communication and getting the right message across to the decision makers within the U.S. administration.
Did you fear that they really were connected to the Trump administration and had the power to carry out what they were doing?
After the events transpired with Ambassador Yovanovitch, yes, I thought that was a distinct possibility.
Everything is going to the graveyard. All the talking points are going to a graveyard, okay? It didn't happen. It was a perfect call. It's a hoax. It's a conspiracy theory. They're trying to get me. Now it's not impeachable. Rudy Giuliani is innocent. He's a good man. He's a crime fighter. All of this stuff is going to the graveyard. And I will tell you, on December 5th, the House is going to have hearings to debate what is and what is not an impeachable offense and what the President of the United States did do. And is it impeachable? And we will be able to hear that debate.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
For those of you who are looking for direct evidence that the White House was involved in this, effort to withhold much-needed aid to Ukraine and to prevent Zelensky from coming to the White House so he could, negotiate with Putin from a position of strength, meaning the United States is with me. The United States is with me. American Oversight, has won their Freedom of Information Act request, and they were able to receive documents, and these documents clearly show the direct connection to the White House.
The State Department released nearly 100 pages of records in response to American Oversight's lawsuit seeking a range of documents related to the Trump administration's dealings with Ukraine. You might have heard Rachel talking about this on her show. Those documents have just been released, and joining us now by phone is Austin Evers, the executive director of ethics watchdog group American Oversight. Austin, thank you for joining me. I'm just looking at your press release about these documents. You're saying that among the records, they include emails that confirm multiple contacts in March of this year between Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and Rudy Giuliani, at least one of which was facilitated by the president's assistant, Madeleine Westerhout. Tell me what you are learning. I imagine you've just received these documents, so you haven't fully had a chance to go through them.
Thanks so much for having me on. Yes, we are still reviewing them. We wanted to get them out to the public as quickly as possible because transparency is so important on these issues.
And you put them up for download. You've made them available.
We did. They are available on our website, AmericanOversight.org, and you can follow our Twitter account, We Are Oversight. We'll be pulling out the snippets all night long and into the coming days. But you summarized it well. The documents show a clear paper trail connecting not just Rudy Giuliani to Mike Pompeo, but being connected by the Oval Office. President Trump's personal assistant, Madeleine Westerhout, serving as a conduit when Rudy Giuliani can't get through to Pompeo through, quote, regular channels. The president's personal assistant makes that connection happen. Based on the timing, which is around March of this year, it looks apparent that this was a connection to ensure that Rudy Giuliani's smear campaign against a sitting U.S. ambassador made it to Mike Pompeo's desk. This is just the first set of disclosures that American Oversight's litigation is going to expose. So a major message I want people to understand is that while the administration has refused to turn these documents over to Congress, the stone wall is cracking, and we're going to get regular document productions from the State Department and other agencies to make sure the truth comes out.
So this is how democracy functions. This is why the fact that, autocrats always kill journalists. Yeah, they go after journalists all the time. They kill them. They disappear them. Sometimes they dismember them. And they go for their fingers first. Why? Because they're riders. See what I mean? But here in America, we have these groups that do oversight, that actually file these Freedom of Information Act requests in courts of law. And the courts are ruling that the transparency that is needed to understand this for the American people is within bounds. And so documents are being released from the State Department, and they clearly show that the White House made sure that Rudy Giuliani and Mike Pompeo were in contact with each other regarding the smearing and defamation of the anti-corruption ambassador, Maria Yovanovitch, in order for Rudy and his clients to take over Naftogaz, which is why it's so important that they sat down with this guy, Andrew Favorov, who works at Naftogaz, so he could fill in that piece of the puzzle. They weren't doing this because, they believed Ukraine had really done it and they were trying. No, and they weren't doing it because they were loyal to, the president of the United States and trying to defend him against what Mueller had found. They were doing it for money. Of course, they were doing it for cash. They were doing it to enrich themselves, just like the president was looking for dirt to benefit himself at the expense of the Biden family. Now, if Joe Biden or his son 5 years ago had done something illegal, corrupt, had the appearance of corruption, something untoward, something wrong, the proper venue is America for trying or indicting or hearing a case against an American citizen. It would not be Russia. It would not be Ukraine. It would not be North Korea or Saudi Arabia or Turkey or any other place. American citizens are indicted by American grand juries and tried in American courts for criminal behavior. You do not ask a foreign adversary to investigate an American citizen, and especially not for your own political benefit when you're president of the United States. Case closed. This is an easy one. That's why this one was superior to the Mueller investigation, even though Robert Mueller found the president guilty 10 times of obstruction of justice but could not charge him. Therefore, he could not indict the president. However, there is a case in New York where Donald Trump is an unindicted co-conspirator. And that is the case with Michael Cohen, Stormy Daniels, and Karen McDougal's hush money payments. And Rudy Giuliani is involved in that one too. Small world, isn't it, everybody? Just small world. And Michael Cohen literally said to Justin Amash that Donald Trump speaks in code and that you understand what he wants, and he understood what the president wanted.
You suggested that the president sometimes communicates his wishes indirectly. For example, you said, quote, Mr. Trump did not directly tell me to lie to Congress. That's not how he operates, end quote. Can you explain how he does this?
Sure. It would be no different if I said, that's the nicest looking tie I've ever seen, isn't it? What are you going to do? You're going to fight with him? The answer is no. So you say, yeah, it's the nicest looking tie I've ever seen. That's how he speaks. He doesn't give you questions. He doesn't give you orders. He speaks in a code. And I understand the code because I've been around him for a decade.
And it's your impression that others who work for him understand the code as well?
Most people, yes.
So Michael Cohen, apparently, according to this ever-evolving Rudy Giuliani tale, is cooperating with SDNY, with the New York prosecution that is looking into Rudy Giuliani's many crimes. And Michael Cohen, apparently, in Otisville Prison, the only kosher prison I'm aware of in upstate New York, has spoken to prosecutors 3 times. 3 times. This is a president who pardons crimes and criminals, even war crimes and war criminals. Oh, and by the way, there is a quid pro quo with the Gallagher and the Goldstein and the Lawrence pardons. You know what the quid pro quo is? And they were joking about it. They were sitting on Fox News denigrating their chain of command. That was just bizarre. But Gallagher was sitting on the Fox News, and he was denigrating, the Colonel Green, who's in charge of the Navy SEALs, Rear Admiral, sorry, I made him a colonel, he's an admiral. Rear Admiral Green, he was denigrating him, and this guy is being pointed to now by these Trump sycophants. But Trump wants Lawrence and Gallagher and Goldstein to campaign with him during the 2020 election campaign. He wants these war criminals on the stage with him. This is just frightening because guys like that on the stage could convince other war criminals in the ranks to, actually start answering, orders of Donald Trump and not the orders of their platoon leaders or not the orders of their, brigade commander or not the orders of the Secretary of the Army, Navy, Air Force, or Marines. I mean, this is just crazy.
I've acknowledged I have made my own mistakes, and I have owned up to them publicly and under oath. But silence and complicity in the face of the daily destruction of our basic norms and civility to one another will not be one of them. I did things and I acted improperly, at times at Mr. Trump's behest. I blindly followed his demands. My loyalty to Mr. Trump has cost me everything. My family's happiness, friendships, my law license, my company, my livelihood, my honor, my reputation, and soon my freedom. And I will not sit back, say nothing, and allow him to do the same to the country. Indeed, given my experience working for Mr. Trump, I fear that if he loses the election in 2020, that there will never be a peaceful transition of power. And this is why I agreed to appear before you today.
Oh, for God's sake.
So that was the first time we ever heard the notion that Trump will not leave.
Mary had a little lamb. The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream today.
Change has come to America.
Believe me. Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
Earlier tonight, Obama appointed federal judge Ketanji Brown Jackson has ruled that former White House counsel Don McGahn must comply with the House impeachment subpoena. The DOJ has already said it's going to appeal. It should also be noted that our competitors were loath to admit tonight that if upheld at the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, McGahn could just show up to Congress and assert privilege on as many questions as he wanted. Alan, your response to the hyperbolic reaction to this, one federal district court judge in D.C. on this question of McGahn?
Well, the big winner is Uber.
because McGahn's going to have to get into his car. He's going to have to go over to the Capitol, raise his hand, take an oath, and then he can invoke privilege. So this has no substantive impact. The judge went out of her way to say, I am not ruling on the issues of privilege. All I'm saying is he has to show up. He used that word. And then she went nuts talking about how the president's not the king. Of course the president's not the king. The president's far more powerful than the king. The president has the power that kings have never had. He's very, very powerful office, and the framers wanted it that way. That's why they required for impeachment very strict criteria to be met.
I do want always corruption.
Oh, Alan Dershowitz, the president of the United States, is more powerful than a king. He can operate in a vacuum. He doesn't have to have money spent by Congress and then sign things into law. No, the president is a king. So that was the news yesterday that happened after we signed off, that a judge, a D.C. Circuit Court judge, who, had the case in front of her about whether or not Don McGahn has what the president is saying he has, and that is absolute immunity from having to answer questions even after he leaves the president's service. That the president has absolute rights and absolute immunity, and nobody that ever worked for him, nobody that works for him now, needs to, comply with a congressionally ordered legal subpoena. This judge, 124 times in Judge Jackson's opinion, she used some variant of the word absolute to knock down that thought from anybody's lexicon. By the way, the other courts also have ruled against Donald Trump. The court, obviously, on the FOIA request that American Oversight filed, said, oh, no, those documents do need to be made transparent. They do need to be turned over to American Oversight so the American people can see. And those emails from the State Department clearly show the connection to the White House. The tax issue, you had two district courts say that in two separate cases, one with Mazars, a third party, saying that they have to turn over the president's taxes, that a third party cannot be, ignoring congressional subpoenas. And then the second case where the Oversight Committee has also asked for Trump's tax returns. The district courts have said, well, the law is clear, and that if the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee requests the Trump's taxes, then the IRS shall provide them. So now this thing goes up to the Supreme Court, and yesterday the Supreme Court decided that it won't decide yet. It just said, give us a minute. Give us a minute. And that decision came without dissent. So I don't know what the Supreme Court is thinking, doing, wanting to do, will do. I have no idea. All I know is that everything's going to end up at the Supreme Court, and that slows down Congress's ability to produce the witnesses, to make them comply with subpoenas. The McGahn thing goes back to the Mueller investigation. This has been 7 months that we've been waiting for a court to weigh in on whether or not Don McGahn, whose name appeared in the Mueller report like 1 billion times, should have to testify. But this is what the judge wrote. And of course, this is going to get appealed. And it's going to get appealed to an appeals court, the D.C. Circuit. And then it's going to get appealed to the Supreme Court. And then maybe next summer, right before the election, they'll come up with a decision, which is why the House has got to come to grips with the fact that they have enough evidence right freaking now to hold this president accountable for impeachable offenses of defrauding the United States, asking foreign governments for help, laundering money into the RNC through, the NRA and through the super PACs, right? So, but this is what Judge Ketanji Brown wrote. She wrote, however busy or essential a presidential aide might be, and whatever their proximity to sensitive domestic and national security projects, the president does not have the power to excuse him or her from taking an action that the law requires, like complying with a subpoena. The witnesses who have defied Congress at the behest of the president will have to decide whether their duty is to the country or to a president who believes he is above the law, okay? So she went on and she said, stated simply, the primary takeaway from the past 250 years of recorded American history is that presidents are not kings. Alan Dershowitz suggests otherwise. Alan Dershowitz, who is best friends with the deceased Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump, says the president he's more powerful than a king. Kings don't have nearly as much power as the American president had. You know, kings ordered drawing and quartering and disembowelment of people. Kings actually put people in, like, the Tower of London where they were tortured. But this president has more power than that, according to Alan Dershowitz, who, don't ask me what he's, what his quid pro quo is, but he's campaigning for the president. And in exchange, the president does X. I don't know. Same thing with Gallagher. Same thing with Goldstein. Same thing with, Lieutenant Lawrence. Same thing. They're murderers. And if you have a son or a daughter who is in the military, just know that the president of the United States won't protect your son and daughter from serving with war criminals who literally shoot, stab naked prisoners and then take kill photos of them and put them on social media. So your kid has to serve now with war criminals, according to this president. How sick a place we are in. But she wrote stated simply, the primary takeaway from the past 250 years of recorded American history is that presidents are not kings. This means they do not have subjects bound by loyalty or blood, whose destiny they are entitled to control. Rather, in this land of liberty, it is indisputable that current and former employees of the White House work for the people of the United States, and that those people take an oath to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. Moreover, as citizens of the United States, current and former senior level presidential aides have constitutional rights, including their right to free speech, and they retain these rights even after they have transitioned back into private life, meaning the president cannot silence them. She quoted precedent 8 Ways to Sunday. She went back to the founding of this country. She cited laws from 1926. She cited laws in 2008. She cited a 1971 memo from Richard Nixon's legal counsel. She cited Ronald Reagan in the Iran-Contra affair, who declined to assert executive privilege and even furnished relevant excerpts of his personal diaries to Congress for review. She went back to the founding. She went back to the Continental Congress. She went back to before the Continental Congress. I mean, Don McGahn has got to show up, and so does Bolton.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Mr. Trump is a cheat. As previously stated, I am giving to the committee today 3 years of Mr. Trump's personal financial statements from 2011, 2012, and 2013, which he gave to Deutsche Bank to inquire about a loan to buy the Buffalo Bills and to Forbes. These are Exhibits 1A, 1B, and 1C to my testimony. It was my experience that Mr. Trump inflated his total assets when it served his purposes, such as trying to be listed amongst the wealthiest people in Forbes, and deflated his assets to reduce his real estate taxes. I'm sharing with you 2 newspaper articles, side by side, that are examples of Mr. Trump inflating and deflating his assets, as I said, to suit his financial interests.
So this is why Trump doesn't want his tax returns revealed. And obviously the Supreme Court will hear that case. The law is, well, I don't know that they'll hear it. Honestly, I don't know. And there's no reason why they should. The law is crystal clear that if the chairman of a Ways and Means Committee, whether they're Republican or Democratic, it doesn't matter, or in the House, the Financial Services Committee, or in the Senate, the Financial Services Committee requests the president's tax returns, the IRS shall furnish. That is the law. There's no wiggle room in that law. And so here's what the Supreme Court did. They inserted themselves into this because Donald Trump went to them and said, I want you to do something. You got to stop this. You got to stop this. So they said, all right, you know what? We'll take a break, take a breather. No dissent, meaning a unanimous Supreme Court said, we don't know what we're going to do yet. You don't have to turn over the taxes. Mazars doesn't have to turn over the taxes. Trump doesn't have to turn over his taxes to the House of Representatives until we weigh in. They expedited the hearing. Okay, a lot of stuff's going to happen the week after Thanksgiving. A lot of stuff. December 5th, the Supreme Court is going to hear the arguments with regard to Trump's taxes. And also December 5th, the House of Representatives is going to have a debate on what Donald Trump has been proven to have done and whether or not that is impeachable. So a lot of things are going to happen a week after Thursday, the following Thursday. But here's something really, really freaky interesting. John Bolton finally got his Twitter account back, as you know, and he made a big damn deal about it. And I think the rule is something like if you had a Twitter account and you were part of the administration, when you leave, you're responsible to set up another Twitter account. I don't know. Anyway, he said that Twitter had put some code on his account, that the White House had put some code on his account, and that Twitter took it off so that he could access it. Who cares? That's really small stuff. But now he's tweeting, and today he tweeted. And people think this is cryptic, and I don't. I think this is specific, and I think this is pointed. And I think this shows the character of John Bolton, which I will share my opinion about that after I read this to you. It's very short. Obviously, it's a tweet. John Bolton tweeted this afternoon, it probably goes without saying that our country's commitment to our national security priorities is under attack from within. From within? What is? There's nothing cryptic about that. Okay? That means that that Donald Trump's former national security advisor, John Bolton, the one before that is, pled guilty to, taking Russian money. But this one, who also resigned, is telling the American people through his Twitter account that our national security priorities are under attack from within. America is distracted. Our enemies are not. We need to make U.S. national security a priority. I don't find that cryptic. Let me tell you what I believe his character or his thought process at this particular point in his life is. Remember, John Bolton was our UN ambassador. He was our Nikki Haley, right? And he hated the United Nations, and he hated all of our alliances, so much so that he said that the top 11 floors or 12 floors of the United Nations ought to be lopped off. He's advocated for war with Iran. He's a hawk. Everybody knows it. Everybody around him. This guy, Tim Morrison, who testified, who is Bolton's deputy, who also confessed there was a quid pro quo. Didn't want to, but he did. He was forced. So these are uber right-wingers. When the uber right-wingers are telling you that this president is attacking our country and that the president himself is a danger to the United States and our way of life, democracy, a disciplined and professional citizen military, and he's trying to turn that into his own personal mercenary force, right? And that U.S. national security has got to be our priority and that our national security is under attack from within. It tells me that John Bolton is looking to get a lot of attention. Why? Well, we all know John Bolton signed a book deal. I believe his advance was $2 million. John Bolton has been a government worker for a really long time, making a government salary. You know, I mean, 100, 140 maybe, right? And I'm sure he's had some side things going on in between his gigs in the government. But this is his big payday. This is where he cashes in and cashes out. And he is going to milk this for as much as it's worth. I believe, and I'm telling you right freaking now, John Bolton will testify. He will show up. He will be sworn. He will not invoke too much privilege. And he will tell the story of what he knows about the president threatening Ukrainian military aid, President Zelensky, Maria Yovanovitch, Rudy Giuliani's insertion into our foreign policy apparatus for his own personal benefit, for Parnas's own personal benefit, for Igor Fruman's personal benefit. He will tell you everything. I believe that will happen, but not until there's like this frenzied pitch and that it becomes must-see TV the day that John Bolton testifies, that he will be the hero that delivers the United States from the evil that is Donald Trump. And so he'll just wait for a while. He'll just wait. You know, the country is evenly divided as of today, 50% for impeachment and removal and 50% against impeachment and removal. Bolton knows he can flip the script one way or another, but he is going to get paid. But this tweet, it probably goes without saying that our country's commitment to our national security priorities is under attack from within. Period. That's founding father stuff. We will never be destroyed from without. We can only ever be destroyed from within. A house divided cannot stand.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Here's Democratic Congressmember Peter Welch on the GOP.
You seem convinced there is an impeachable offense here worth pursuing, and that to you, in case of a smoking gun, is the transcript itself. You say by the president asking the leader of a foreign country to dig up dirt on his political rival or opponent is worthy of impeachment. Why do no other Republicans thus far seem to agree with you?
Well, you know, it's a good question. I mean, where's the Howard Baker of this year? But essentially what you have is documentation, I think overwhelming proof, that the president used his power in an effort to force the Ukraine to do something that was good for him personally in his political life. It had nothing to do with national security interest. And, you know, we live in this society now where everybody apparently feels that they can see the facts as they want to see them. I mean, it's a real challenge for a democracy where there's not a common set of facts. Trump exploits that. He pushes that. But the bottom line here is it's astonishing to me that my Republican colleagues don't express a real concern about the president's invitation to Ukraine to interfere in our election and also his pressure on Ukraine to get what he wants.
Seriously, and he did it with the hush money payments too. Okay, it was to pay off women who were going to come forward at the end of the election cycle after the Access Hollywood tape, and they were going to, Karen McDougal was going to write a tell-all book, and Stormy Daniels was going to go to another outlet, and she was going to tell. And so they decided the hush money payments would be in order, and that they would funnel it through a law firm. That was Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen ended up in jail. Everything that this president does is for this president's benefit, and he's an idiot about it. He's just an idiot about it. You want to see something idiotic? Okay, so this is a real short little clip, but this one is just so illustrative of the moronic nature and the intellect. Okay, the lack of intellectual heft that this president possesses. Yesterday, the president signed, I swear to God, the Centennial Suffragette Coin bill. Okay, the centennial. Now remember, women got the right to vote in this country in 19 and 20. So 2020 would be 100 years ago, right? Right. So that's why the centennial. That's why. And the big thing he did, and why he's having bill signings for stuff like this is just so bizarre, because he's got nothing else to do, and no other bills of any import to sign. This is tantamount to naming a post office. But he decided that he was going to have a bill signing ceremony in the Oval Office with a woman wearing a pageant sash. Insane, right? But the intellectual heft is so minor. It's so low. It's so beneath what you would want in a president, a commander-in-chief, in a leader of the free world. He doesn't understand why this was not done earlier. Again, next year, 2020, will be 100 years since women got the right to vote. Hence, it's called the centennial.
They've been working on this for years and years, and I'm curious, why wasn't it done a long time ago? And also, well, I guess the answer to that is because now I'm president, we get things done. We get a lot of things done that nobody else got done.
Jesus. That is the president of the United States of America. He doesn't understand. It's been years and years in the making to mint this centennial coin, but he has to have a woman. In case you missed it, I don't know if you're listening to a podcast. If you're listening to a podcast, I suggest you just go to our YouTube channel and sign in there, just so you could see this little clip, because your subscription also entitles you to the video for free in the premium section. He is sitting at the desk with a woman wearing a beauty pageant sash.
They've been working on this for years and years, and I'm curious, why wasn't it done a long time ago? And also, well, I guess the answer to that is because now I'm president, we get things done. We get a lot of things done that nobody else got done.
It's never been the centennial of the suffragette movement before. Do you understand that, right? I don't have to say that ever again, do I? Okay, thank you. Kenny in New York.
Hey, how's it going, Randy?
Hello, Kenny.
Hey, first of all, I have a couple other topics, besides what I originally told your screener. But if you want to send thoughts and prayers out for anybody, then you ought to start with people like Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who was just in the hospital last week.
Yes.
And also the soldiers that are still out there that we know will not obey this guy's orders. Because this is getting really, really, really insane, if you ask me.
It is. And you know what I worry about? I worry about the parents of soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines who have kids serving with these war criminals now. I mean, that is just insane. Like, the stats on women's safety in the military is pathetic. 1 in 4 women will be raped in the military, just want to say. And so now to have to serve with, crazy people who kill naked people, bury them, unbury them, burn their bodies, really?
I know. Hey, also, I want to ask you, can Maria Yovanovitch, I know she can't, supposedly we can't sue the president or anything like that, but can she sue Giuliani since he's a private citizen?
Well, first of all, let me correct something. You can sue the president because,
you can.
Well, Bill Clinton was sued by
that's right.
by Jennifer Flowers.
Okay.
Right. And by Paula, what's her name? Paula Jones. Yeah, Paula Jones sued the president, and the Supreme Court said that the president had to testify in the civil case. So let's not say that what the OLC says is you can't indict the president while he's president.
Oh, okay.
Got to take a rain check on that, but that's ridiculous because that means that the president could kill somebody and we'd be stuck with them. Okay, but can she, Marie Yovanovitch, sue Rudy Giuliani for defamation? Abso-freaking-lutely.
Hope somebody does it. All right, thanks for taking my call. Happy Thanksgiving.
Oh, thank
everybody.
you. Yes, and by the way, this little piece of paper is what's left of my shopping list. Just so you know, I'm jotting as I go. I'm a multitasker. So I have, on my list, I have Brussels sprouts washed. I don't want to wash. An 18-pound Tom. Brown sugar, regular sugar, cinnamon stick, maple syrup, beef broth, fresh thyme, sage, rosemary, and for some strange reason, plastic cups and sherry. That is what is on my list right there. I put Howard in charge of getting the booze. I know nothing about it. As long as he gets me some White Claw, I'll be fine. I'll get right through this Thanksgiving with Loretta and in-laws and Jessica and him, Howard, the Howard. Just give me like a lot of White Claw. But yes, of course she could sue him. He defamed her. He literally deprived her of her 33 years of earned position in the State Department as our anti-corruption ambassador to the Ukraine. And of course she's been damaged. And what you have to prove is that you knew what you were saying was false. And that is damn provable. So yeah, yes to your question. Yes, she can sue.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Oh, everybody, here is our beloved First Lady getting booed.
Thank you, Jim, for the warm introduction and for inviting me to join you today for such an important event centered on opioid awareness. Wishing you all a happy Thanksgiving. Be safe. May God bless you, your families, and United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you so much, First Lady. We appreciate you.
Oh, not good. I guess they need to keep having LSU games, right? It's the only place he doesn't get booed is at LSU games. It's the only place. It's the only one. Maybe he could go to the, Alabama. I don't know. Not sure. Not really sure. But the beloved First Lady of the United States of America, the beloved President of the United States, our dear leader, gets booed everywhere he goes except for cult rallies and LSU games. You know. Normal, right? It's also normal. Mm-hmm. Bob in Oklahoma.
Hello there. You rock.
Thank you.
Nurses are so vital.
Nurses?
Yes, nurses in general are just so vital to our society and to healthcare. And they don't get paid enough. They work long hours, and I just want to say that. And the other thing I wanted to say is I don't think that we're going to have democracy with this republic until all these suit-wearing folks that are meeting behind closed doors that supposedly are running our country into the ground, until they're exposed. I mean, unprotected. Until they have to talk face-to-face with the people they supposedly govern, there will be no democracy here.
Well, you know what the thing is? By the way, I want to just say nurses are the healers and the angels that walk among us, and I agree. That said, until we get the money out of our politics, we're never going to be able to reclaim our republic. It's just not, it cannot withstand all of the purchasing of senators and Supreme Court justices and presidents and House members. The money is what is ruining. It's turning us into an oligarchy. It's turning us.
I agree.
And that is the basic problem. So I just want people to understand that the very first bill, when the Democrats did take over the House, whether they live by it or they don't, is H.R. 1 to take the freaking money out. Also, the Democratic presidential candidates are for putting a constitutional amendment on the ballot in every state in order to amend the Constitution to ban money.
That's good. That's good.
It's everything. It's not just good, that's everything. It is what ails us. It is the answer to the dilemma in which we find ourselves currently. It is the answer to billionaires thinking, well, I'll just spend my own money and then I'll be the king of the castle. This is ridiculous. The fact that it takes $1 billion to run for president of the United States should be an assault to your sense of decency. Why would anybody listen to you or me if they can listen to a billionaire promising to give them $300 million or $250 million or Donald Trump's Thanksgiving thing, pay $100,000 to have dinner on Thanksgiving at Mar-a-Lago where there are no visitors logs to get the ear of the President of the United States? I mean, this is what is wrong. And well-meaning individuals, people who would put legislation like this together, people who would say the money is the problem, who are asking for positions of power, who will tell you that what we need is a constitutional amendment to undo this crazy idea that corporations are people, my friend, as if they have colonoscopies or nurses will tend to their necrotic, oozy, pussy gravy sores, is a ridiculous notion perpetrated by the Supreme Court upon all of us. But the people who advocate for a constitutional amendment, the people who advocate for blocking the money and making it illegal to have dark money sloshing around, those are the people who you should pay attention to. Those are the people who, despite their own need for the money, are telling you, not only do I need the money, but I'm willing to tell you that money is the problem. Those are the people whose ears whose voices ought to perk up your ears because they're telling you the truth. Carrie in California.
Hi, Randi.
Hey.
You know, I've been listening to you back in, back when you and Timmy were on WJNO.
Timmy?
Timmy, your producer? The guy that got sprayed at a rally?
Tim Walker. Oh, my God. You know what Tim Walker does now? He works
tell him.
Oh, Tim Walker works for our local TV station. He does like lifestyle reports, and he's great at it. He's so talented. He's such a good kid. He's not a kid anymore, but he's so good.
I had a question. Why would anyone trust a foreign government? Why do you think they're telling you the truth?
Wait, what?
Why would anyone? Why does the Republican Party trust what a foreign government says?
Oh, I don't think they trust them. I think that they are that the foreign government has given money through super PACs and funneled money through things like the NRA and funneled money through the Trump super PAC. And they know that they're exposed. They know they have exposure. They listen, you had a whole bunch of Republican congressmen on the 4th of July, on American Independence Day, go to Moscow and genuflect at Putin's knee. You think that there's no compromise on them? You think Lindsey Graham has clean hands, or that John Kennedy over there has clean hands on all of this? Please, these people are compromised. There's two things going on at the same time. One, a whole bunch of them, like Devin Nunes, compromised, went to Vienna, met with this Parnas and Fruman dude, was promoting this Russian cover-up, this Russian frame job on Ukraine. They're all dirty. That's number one. They all have exposure to compromise that Russia has on them. The other thing that's going on is they understand if the end of their party, the end of the grand old pervert party, the Jim Jordan party, the pedophile party, they will not be a majority party for at least another 20 years if they lose this particular battle. This is their Waterloo. Mm-hmm. And that's what's going on. You've got people who are compromised that are part of this story, covering up this story, and you have people who are not part of this story who understand it's the end of their ability to be a majority party ever again in their lifetime.
Well, one thing
So please don't equate it with they trust Russia. They distrust Putin, and they know that Putin will expose them.
Well, I think they're not stupid. They're using words to manipulate their base.
Well, of course they are. They're lying.
Yeah, and
they're lying, and they're denying documents. They're denying transcripts. They're denying things that were texted. I mean, the text messages alone should have been the end of this. Now you've got these guys, Parnas and Fruman. They say they have audio tapes. They say they have videotapes. I mean, this stuff is it's going to kill their party, and they know it.
Well, keep telling the truth, Randy.
I will. I have no other choice. I mean, I'm not spending my lifetime, perpetrating a lie. You know that old expression, oh, what a tangled web we weave when first we practice to deceive? The way that I term it now, and I have for years. In fact, Howard Schultz had a campaign at Starbucks a few years ago where he approached people who are quotable and asked them to put a quote on a coffee cup. And Bush was president. And I decided I would go with my version of, oh, what a tangled web we weave when first we practice to deceive. I said, and this was on a coffee cup, it takes 2 seconds to tell the truth, but a lifetime to lie. The Republican Party will spend the rest of their lifetime as a party lying because they chose not to tell the truth when it mattered. When Kennedy goes on Fox News and says, you don't know who did it, and I don't know. Now he's stuck with the lie. When Donald Trump says Mexico will pay for the wall, now he's stuck with the lie. He's stuck with 13,000 lies. His life, his legacy will be liar in chief.